Democrats commit political suicide with their climate change town hall. The NRA is declared a terrorist organization, and a outrage forms over Chick-fil-A opening in Canada. Because we all know, Chick-fil-A is a vile, hateful organization. My name is Sean Clinton, and this is the God of Freedom Show. Alrighty guys, I am back. I know it's been a while since I posted on here, but I am back now and ready to get back in the action. But we have a lot to get to, so let's not waste too much time in the beginning. Excuse me. So, there's a saying that goes around among conservatives, mainly on Twitter, but the saying is, all Democrats have to do was not be crazy. And where this originated from was the 2016 election. Because we all know, during the 2016 election, Democrats reacted in the worst way possible to everything that Trump said. They made a complete fool of themselves. And were there stuff that Trump said that were bad? Of course. But Democrats reacted in extreme fashion. And that's one of the reasons why they lost in 2016. So what went around among conservatives after the election was that what Democrats had to do to win in 2020. And that what they had to do was be normal. Like seriously, all they had to do was be normal and not be crazy. Because if they were to be like this return to normalcy campaign all throughout the 2020 election, they would win. Definitely win. But of course, they failed miserably at it. Like seriously, right from the beginning, when Trump started enacting policy, they reacted, of course, in the worst way possible. When he pulled out of the Paris Climate Agreement, Democrats were saying this is the end of the world. When he passed the tax cuts, Democrats said this is the end of the world, it's going to kill millions of people. When Kavanaugh was nominated, people were saying this is the Handmaid's Tale, it's going to be the end of the world, whatever. So apparently, every little thing that Trump has done over the past 3 years or so was supposed to be the end of the world. Guess what? It's 2019. Trump was elected in 2016. We're all still here. But the thing is, Democrats don't get. They just don't get that this kind of. What the heck? Sorry, there's a little spider I'm in. But what Democrats don't get is that this constant, this overreaction, just being insane, does not settle well with the regular Americans. And they just don't get it. I'm bewildered by the lack of self-awareness with this kind of stuff, and that's fairly evident at the whole climate town hall thing on CNN the other night. So this whole it was 7 hours long. This whole climate change town hall thing. I didn't watch it honestly, because why would I subject myself to it? If I was doing this on a regular basis, if it was my full-time job, I probably would have watched it, but anyways, I know a little bit what happened and what Democrats had to say, and they said that some of the most insane stuff during that thing. Excuse me, sorry. Again, yeah, they said they pretty much want to ban everything, literally everything. So, here's basically, to give you kind of a brief rundown of what exactly happened, here's a piece from the New York Times, basically kind of a quick little takeaway to what exactly happened that night. Alright, so basically, who was out there, most of the, kind of prominent Democratic candidates were there, like Cory Booker, Kamala Harris, Joe Biden, Elizabeth Warren, Bernie Sanders, then I believe Amy Klobuchar, Andrew Yang was there, Julian Castro, and all of them. And so what this basically is a quick little rundown of what the Democrats had to say during the entire 7-hour town hall thing. Okay, so the piece I got right here starts with Cory Booker, and it's titled, Cory Booker says every policy should be informed informed by climate change. And here's what it says. Combating climate change is not one item on the list of policies, Senator Cory Booker said. It is the lens through which we must do everything. Okay, this is the kind of language that, just, again, makes my point, is that Americans will not settle well. Because, again, okay, I'm not a climate change expert. I believe that there's like a little bit happening and we are contributing to it a little bit. But I don't think it's to the extreme where it's going to mean like a day after tomorrow type scenario where like ice is the giant ice age over in New York, whatever. Really, the worst that can happen is that the sea levels can rise a little bit, but again, that'll be like very slowly, and then people have to move like from the coast. I mean, that's about it. There's not going to be any major like tsunamis or like big storms or whatever. But so again, so this kind of language is not so like the normal American is not gonna like this kind of language, like with some kind of American Democratic nominee. But anyways, it continues. Under a Booker administration, he said every department and federal agency would be expected to have a climate plan. He would use every lever that I have on foreign policy to challenge world leaders like Jair Bolsonaro of Brazil, who deny or ignore the science of climate change. Foreign aid would be contingent on the recipients acting on climate change, and climate policy will be a central element of any trade deal. Okay, so you're going after Brazil over because the president there doesn't accept climate change, which is actually a normal thing among conservatives. But anyways, he's going after them. But what we have seen, the countries that have the worst amount of that carbon emissions are China and Russia, like in India. Democrats don't want to do anything to them. They want to just focus on like these like little solutions in America that won't do a thing. Honestly, if the U.S. were to eliminate all of its carbon emissions, that'll only eliminate like I forget what the actual statistic is, but it's like a very minute amount of carbon emissions. Like we don't contribute. Or we contribute a lot, but we're not the top country in the world. So it continues. At the CNN climate town hall on Wednesday night, the New Jersey senator scoffed at Democratic competitors who have said that their first action as president would be to recommit to the Paris Agreement. I'm sorry, he said, that is like a cost of entry to every run for president or talk about the presidency. Like many other candidates, he touched on what farmers can do to be part of the solution, a favorite phrase among Democrats. Some farmers have put windmills on their land, he noted, and has proposed multi-billion-dollar fund to help farmers plant cover crops and adopt sustainable other practices. Okay, here's the other thing. Democrats have been like they want to go after farmers because of climate change. But here's the thing. Farmers contribute like a very, very minute amount of carbon emissions and all that to America, like very small percentage. But like Democrats want to focus on that for some reason. It was perhaps inevitable that as a vegan, Mr. Booker received one of the most common questions of the night: whether the government should encourage Americans to eat less meat and dairy. Booker wants to take away your hamburger, and that is the kind of lies and fear-mongering they spread. He added, freedom is one of our most sacred values. Whatever you want to eat, go ahead and eat. What he said he wants to focus on, he said, is the prevalence of factory farms and their unhealthy, climate-unfriendly practices. Again, like, fixing that won't do a thing. Thanks to the corporate lobby, thanks to the corporate lobby, he said, we're incentivizing those kinds of farm practices and not the ones that represent our heritage and support family farming. On perhaps the most divisive climate-related question within the Democratic Party, whether nuclear energy should be part of the country's plan to reach net zero carbon emissions, Ms. Booker was particularly adamant. He said that the next generation nuclear reactors could vastly reduce the risk of disasters like Chernobyl and Fukushima or something like that. It was like a place, like a town in Japan, I believe. I think that was the nuclear reactor in Japan that melted, that nuclear reactor melted away or whatever, that went off during the big earthquake a few years ago, and that tsunami that went over the area. But anyways, and that's where, and that there was no way to decarbonize fast enough without them. So basically, yeah, what he's saying about nuclear energy is true. Nuclear energy is actually one of the most cheapest and most efficient ways to eliminate carbon emissions. Actually, like windmills and like solar panels do very minute, and they're the most expensive thing on the market. But the problem is, most Democrats want to don't want to even talk about nuclear energy. They just want to talk about putting windmills or solar panels. But so good on Cory Booker for actually saying something that would actually help. Under his climate plan, we need to be at zero carbon electricity by 2030. And that's 10 years from the time that I win the presidency of the United States, and right now nuclear is more than 50% of our non-carbon causing energy. So people who think that we can get there without nuclear being a part of the blend, that just aren't looking at the facts. And that's completely true. Now the whole idea that we're going to get there by 2030 is nonsense. I mean, yeah, I don't know how exactly we'll do all that by 2030, but again, Cory Booker's plan is not the most extreme out of the Democrats, but here's where we get really, people like Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders have the most craziest ideas. But anyways, here's a better work. We haven't heard much about national cap and trade system to curb carbon emissions since plans for Congress died in Congress about a decade ago. But tonight at the CNN Climate Forum, Beto O'Rourke, the former congressman for Texas, received the idea as his preferred method of pricing carbon. Under such a system, the government issues a limited amount of allowances for permits to companies and other entities that emit carbon dioxide, essentially creating a cap on emissions. Basically what he's saying is a carbon tax on companies in the United States that don't follow certain climate friendly statutes, whatever, which will not do a thing. And plus that would completely transform the American economy. I mean, he has a $5 trillion climate plan, a $5 trillion climate plan that Mr. O'Rourke released in April. He indicated that he would pursue some type of carbon pricing to reach his goal net of zero emissions by 2050, but he didn't specify an approach. In response to a question from Priya Subberwal, a New York University student, Mr. O'Rourke made clear that he prefers cap and trade over a tax on carbon, which is certainly price carbon. I think the best possible path to do this is through a cap and trade system. He said it's the best way to send a pricing signal. The revenue from a cap and trade program, he said, would be invested in helping communities move toward clean energy. Mr. O'Rourke promised to surprise re-enter the climate security Paris agreement from day one. And this is what most Democrats are echoing. They want to re-enter the Paris Agreement because we all know when Trump, is the worst thing in the world when Trump got out of that. But here's the thing. It's a fun thing. When this whole thing was the Paris Climate Agreement was made. So again, basically with the Paris Climate Agreement, when the countries signed up and the U.S. got out of it, the countries that signed up for it, they have not reduced their carbon emissions, but the U.S. has. So what it seems like to me, the Paris Climate Agreement was completely crap. And that's the reason why Trump got out of it. But of course, Democrats don't want to admit that. So basically, again, Beto O'Rourke has some crazy ideas, but it's not absolutely insane. But but people like Elizabeth Warren, for example, that she was asked about the whole nuclear energy thing, how if she's gonna focus on nuclear energy, and she said no, that she's not gonna focus on nuclear energy because it's dangerous. But what she doesn't get is that, especially today, there's so many safety precautions in nuclear facilities now that the risk of some kind of meltdown is very minimal. So I don't know where she's getting that. And Joe Biden, for example, said that he wants to basically get rid of all coal factories in the United States, which will very well go over well with people in Wisconsin and Michigan and all that. That was so go over well. So basically, overall, just this entire thing was basically a Republican campaign ad to use against Democrats. I can't even explain. They would say so many crazy stuff. And this plays into the narrative that all they have to do was not be crazy, and they just cannot help themselves. And one other example where, an area where they, again, just quickly have gone insane is guns. So, if y'all recall, back last week actually, but last week, there was a shooting over in Odessa, Texas. And basically to recap, as a quick little recap over what happened there. Basically, the shooter basically was pulled, the guy who did the shooting was pulled over about 3:17 p.m. local time on last Saturday by a DPS officer. And the shooter, when the officer got to the car, the shooter basically shot the officer and fled the scene. And as he was fleeing, he basically took his AR-15 and it was shooting multiple innocent people along the road. He stopped at multiple locations to shoot as many people as possible. For whatever reason, about probably 7 people were killed, including a 17-month-old baby, and about 21 were injured. And the shooter was eventually caught at a theater in Odessa, and basically there was a shootout among him and police officers, and the shooter was killed. Especially, naturally, you would think that this will bring everybody together, as everybody would come together and unite, saying this is awful and that we're the families and everything. But as usual, that's not the case. As usual, there's both sides just want to attack each other and blame each other for the shooting. Again, both sides are to blame for the rhetoric around guns, but let's face it, the left is completely worse at it, and it's not even close. And whenever like a mass shooting happens, like one of the key things that Democrats usually say is that Republicans don't care about the shooting victims. They actually like don't mind if people die as long as they have their guns, whatever. And like Democrat and this thing, they say that because we do not agree with how they want to approach gun policy. Because what they want to do with gun policy is basically ban almost every gun. Like there's been some approaches to ban like all semi-automatic firearms, which is pretty much every single firearm in the United States, except for like bolt-action rifles, muzzleloaders, revolvers, and like pump-action shotguns. But like almost all handguns, some shotguns, and like AR-15s and all that, which is like accommodates for about 90% of guns in this country with a banned, which will not go over. And like people like Beto O'Rourke has issued this policy that he wants admit if he wins the presidency, which he won't. But if he does, he wants to amend his policy where he does a mandatory assault weapon buyback. Which again, the term assault weapon has no actual definition. What he wants to actually ban is AR-15s and all that, and through a mandatory buyback. And if he thinks, like, he must be crazy to think that will actually work in like Texas or Georgia or whatever. But of course the left doesn't get that, and I think they get the policies won't work. But instead of admitting that, they want to cast Republicans in bad light and saying, see, they don't care. They don't care if people die. Because they don't want to have any, they want to actually talk solutions. The thing is, Republicans do talk solutions, but they just don't agree with the way Democrats want to do it. And one of the chief irritants of what happens during a shooting like this, that the left always goes after the NRA. They say the NRA has blood money, they profit off when children get killed or whatever, and that even that it goes as far as calling the NRA a terrorist organization. And it's gotten so bad that even now San Francisco has basically declared that the NRA is a terrorist organization. So basically on September 4th, just like probably Tuesday, actually, the San Francisco, this is a Peace and Watch post, by the way, the San Francisco Board of Supervisors passed a resolution Tuesday declaring the National Rifle Association a domestic terrorist organization, and urging the city to examine its financial relationships with companies that do business with the group. Especially, yeah, there's no, like, out of context. Out of context, they literally said that the NRA is a domestic terrorist organization, which makes no sense. Like, name one NRA member that has committed a mass shooting. Spoiler, you can't. In fact, actually, during the Sutherland's shooting last year, I believe, was it last year? No, that's 2017, where the shooter went into a church and basically and open fired. A NRA member with his AR-15 basically went in and stopped the shooter from taking more lives. So that's all the idea that the NRA is responsible for shootings is just complete nonsense. But anyways, it continues. The sharply worded declaration noted recent acts of gun violence, including the July shooting that killed 3 people, all younger than 26, at a food festival in Gilroy, California, southwest San Francisco. The National Rifle Association musters its considerable wealth and organizational strength to promote gun ownership and incite gun owners to acts of violence. Okay, when has the NRA ever incited anybody to some act of violence? Like, just name one. And that's one of the most irritating things. They say all this bullcrap. So the NRA incites violence. The NRA is responsible for all the mass shootings, but they can't name one instance, like one example of how they incite violence or how the NRA is responsible for every mass shooting. They just want to spout this stuff without even checking on seeing if it's factual or not. And it fits with the whole AOC narrative. It's better to be morally right than factually correct. The National Rifle Association spreads propaganda that misinforms and aims to deceive the public about the dangers of gun violence, and the leadership of National Rifle Association promotes extremist positions in defiance of the views of the majority of its membership and the public and undermine the general welfare. Okay, that makes no sense whatsoever. First off, the propaganda that they say that NRA spreads is basically how to defend yourselves and why the Second Amendment is important. And the whole idea that the majority of the NRA members support gun control is complete nonsense. It's complete and utter nonsense. Again, why are they part of the NRA if they support infringements on the Second Amendment? I mean, I'm part of the NRA. I do not support any type of gun control, and I'm mostly not a terrorist. The resolution adopted unanimously by the board's 11 supervisors notes many of the statistics that make the United States stand out in terms of gun violence, stating that the country's gun homicide rate is 25 times higher than any other high-income country in the world, and that 36,000 people in the United States die in gun-related incidents every year, an average of 100 per day. And what they meant from this is that the vast majority of gun deaths in the United States every year is by suicide. Literally, the vast majority of it is by suicide. Which thing is, yes, they're using a gun, but that suicide that goes into a whole nother topic that could be dealt with without touching the whole firearms. And also, the vast majority of gun related deaths is with handguns, and in cities where the most strict gun policy is at. So, if they them going after AR-15s, which commits probably 1%, maybe less, of gun deaths, and plus, when the vast majority of gun deaths happen in places where gun control is the highest, that should be a no-brainer. That should be a fine example of why gun control will not work. But anyways, it continues. It also said that the city would assess its financial and contractual relationships with vendors that do business with the NRA. The city and county of San Francisco should take responsible step to limit those entities who do business with the city and San Francisco from doing business with this domestic terrorist organization. Basically, what they want to do is punish companies that do some kind of business with the NRA. Okay, again, seriously, if they think that this is going to win them the election, they have another thing coming. Again, going back to my point, all Democrats had to do was not be insane. It just bothers me, how they just don't get it, especially on guns. This is honestly part of the reason why Trump won in 2016, because the main like Democrats, the left just looks down upon regular Americans as these evil, bigoted, racist, homophobes who cling to their guns and religion. And like Americans got tired of that. Like for 8 years that was happening, and Americans got tired of it. So that's the reason why. That's the reason why Trump came in and won, because he was basically a giant middle figure to all of them. So I mean, again, if they want to continue doing this, go right ahead. I mean, I want Trump to win 2020, and whatever makes it easy, I mean, go ahead. But I'm worried in the long run if like this will have some sort of consequences with the entire like American like American culture and like political system and everything. Like we could see over the next few years a very dangerous divide to where the point where there's could be a civil war, which I hope it doesn't happen. But I mean, if things continue to go this way, it could very well happen. But again, if Democrats would just not be this insane, none of this wouldn't be happening. But of course, continuing down the line of why Trump will possibly win in 2020 is this. So Chick-fil-A opened a store in Canada, and this is the first actual Chick-fil-A in Canada. Which, as we all know, like Chick-fil-A is the one of the most popular and best fast food restaurants in the United States. I believe like probably Starbucks beats it by a little bit maybe, but I mean it's up there. But as usual, there were protests to this. Why? Because as we know, about 7 years ago, the CEO Dan Cathy, who's the son of Truett Cathy, the founder of Chick-fil-A, basically stated his beliefs on the whole gay marriage thing. Basically, he believes in traditional marriage and that homosexuality is a sin, which is what Christians believe, and it's true. That's what it says in the Bible. And of course, there was this massive outrage to this, like how dare he say this? How dare he? And there was like several boycotts committed like towards Chick-fil-A, and didn't do a thing. Of course, actually, Chick-fil-A sales went up. And of course, like over the years, boycotts going off and on, but with Chick-fil-A, but doesn't do a thing. So when Chick-fil-A opened in Canada, there was massive protests out when it first opened. And here's a piece in the Daily Wire that kind of goes into detail what happened. Excuse me. Fast food chain Chick-fil-A opened the doors of its first location in Toronto, Canada on Friday, and the grand opening was met with protests from a variety of left-wing activists. Liberation TO, a Toronto-based organization dedicated to achieving total non-human and human animal liberation, organized the demonstration in partnership with the 519, a local LGBTQ2 advocacy group. Chick-fil-A has a history of being anti-LGBTQ2. What in the world is the 2 about? That's new. And donating money to oppressive organizations. And these oppressive organizations they talk about is, places like FCA, which is which is basically a group that goes inside, operates inside high schools. Basically kind of a smaller Bible study type thing, mini church in a way, that happens in high schools. And it's a great organization too, and they've done a lot of great things. And another organization that Chick-fil-A donates to is the Salvation Army, which, as we all know, does many, many great things too. But of course, since they're Christian and share some traditional views on marriage and all that, they're awful, horrible, bigoted, evil organizations. And the Liberation TO wrote on Facebook, "We are here to put a stop to that. We are here to end all oppression." The organization also requested that people donate to LGBTQ2 charities or animal sanctuaries as a form of protest, in addition to attending the event and boycotting the grand opening. Which the funny thing is about that, there were actually more people in line to go get into the restaurant than there were protests. And and it continues. Chick-fil-A has given millions of dollars to anti-LGBTQ2 organizations, including known hate groups and proponents of conversion therapy, and continues to do so every year. Okay, now I should note too, Chick-fil-A does donate to certain organizations like FCA, but the vast majority of the organizations that they're talking about is donating, like, the money comes from Dan and Kathy, not the actual Chick-fil-A organization. And also, one thing is, like, they paint Chick-fil-A as this horrible, bigoted, evil, like, restaurant, but they're the most, that there's not been one instance where they kick someone out for being gay, or deny someone a job because of being gay. Like, there's plenty of, like, homosexual people that work at Chick-fil-A. There's plenty of homosexual people that go through and eat at Chick-fil-A. So, like, this idea that, Chick-fil-A is a discriminatory organization is completely nonsense. And, like, the left has been going at them for years, specifically because they're a Christian restaurant, and, like, the left is obviously very anti-Christian for some reason. Many U.S. cities, campuses, retail outlets have refused to allow Chick-fil-A to locate within those spaces, and or have been vocal opponents of corporate hateful values. Again, the corporations, and not the corporations. Okay. Again, what Dan Cathy said was his views. It was not, while Chick-fil-A is run in a Christian-like manner, they don't, okay, what I'm trying to say, the views that he said was not all of the people, it's not the views of every single person that works at Chick-fil-A, and who owns, like, the manager of Chick-fil-A's. Of course, Chick-fil-A runs like a kind of a Christian-like atmosphere, but again, a variety of different people work there. They're not all Christians. Demonstrators, like, they even held, like, some people held, like, a die-in, which is basically kind of this animal rights thing where they lay on the ground and act dead. Basically, like, acting like, they're, like, some kind of, like, dead animal to show their disdain for people eating chicken or meat, whatever. So yeah, but then again, none of this made any difference. Again, the line was bigger than the protests. So it's just funny to me that they continue to go after Chick-fil-A time and again, but it does it again. It does nothing. And this is how most boycotts work. Like, when conservatives try to boycott Nike for their deal with Colin Kaepernick, it didn't do a thing. It actually, Nike sales went up. Because guess what? Most American people don't care. Most people don't actually care about, like, don't think about politics every single day with every little item they buy. They don't go to the store and buy, like, a thing of milk and say, wait, does this company donate to, like, Trump, whatever? No, they just go in and find the best product and leave. That's how most people do, but there's a fraction of people, mostly the left, most leftists, they, like, go into the store and buy things, but they want to make sure that this, like, company they buy from has not donated to some kind of conservative organization or, like, Trump campaign or whatever. And we saw that recently with Olive Garden, because apparently owner actually donates to the Trump campaign. Which, okay, I mean, that's his prerogative. If he wants to do that, that's totally fine. And of course, there was this massive boycott against Olive Garden, but of course, it didn't do a thing. Again, like these, this is how the left operates, because they know they can't do their policy through government, because obviously the American people are not going to vote them in, so they try to go through the corporations. As we saw this with Walmart, they have recently banned people from carrying guns and banned some kind of intermission, whatever. I mean, and doing that, and there's also a push against Visa to ban people from using Visa cards to buy firearms, which, like, seriously, that would be, if that happens, we're in trouble, because then there will be the situation where there's a set of credit cards for liberals and a set of credit cards for conservatives. And that will create such a divide, such a dangerous divide in this country that most likely will not get amended. And again, both sides, like I said before, both sides are guilty of this, of course. Trump doesn't help with his rhetoric, like constantly like saying dumb things, as we all like saw the other day, like on last Sunday, I believe. He made a simple little mistake on Twitter, basically saying that the hurricane Hurricane Dorian was going to hit Alabama, which actually originally was. It was originally going to hit Alabama, but then it shifted up and going along the East Coast instead. And again, I mean, of course, the left ratted awfully to that, saying, "Oh, he committed a crime. He should go to prison. Impeach him now." Like, seriously? I mean, it was a simple little mistake. Like, have you not made mistakes before? I mean, basically what we heard that actually happened was the National Weather Service or whatever gave him the information that it was gonna hit Alabama. Like they gave him that information. That's why he tweeted it out. But of course, the National Guard of Alabama credited him quickly on that, saying, "Actually, no, it's not gonna hit Alabama anymore." Again, it was a simple mistake, and like while Democrats ratted awfully and went after him stupidly for it, like for some reason he like kept on like going on about it, like saying, "Yes, I was right. Like it was gonna hit Alabama. It was gonna hit Alabama." Okay, we get it. It was, but it's not. Like, I mean, why do you keep going after this? Like going on about this? It makes no sense. And that's the kind of thing that Trump does. Like, he doesn't back down on certain things, even on mistakes he makes, which is not always a bad thing. But he needs to admit, like, I mean, when he's wrong, he needs to admit that he's wrong. And, I mean, yeah. But again, while all that about Trump's off-putting, the stuff that Democrats do is even way more off-putting than what he says. And that's the reason why, that's the reason why I prefer Trump over Democrats. Again, like, Trump has done amazing things as presidency, which is one of the biggest reasons why I'm supporting him. But one of the other reasons is because of the way Democrats are right now. They support abortion on demand. They support a national takeover government welfare, or like natural rights, or basically all make America into a socialist country. That's what basically they support. And they support a ban of all guns and everything. And let's just say, if they think this is going to go over well with most Americans, they have another thing coming. And again, like I said before at the beginning of the show, all Democrats had to do was not be crazy, and they just can't simply help themselves. Alrighty, so let's get into a little bit of a theology. I mean, it's not going to go too deep. It's most basically it revolves some sort of like involves Christianity in some way. So if you call Drew Brees, Drew Brees is a NFL football player, and basically the other day it was actually National Bring Your Bibles to School Today, and he was encouraging students to bring their Bibles to school. And, you know, pretty reasonable, right? I mean, I know I've brought my Bible to school. I mean, I see no reason why kids shouldn't be allowed to. I mean, there's nothing in the Constitution that says, oh, kids cannot bring their Bibles to school to read. But of course, like, the media just went after him. Like, it's honestly ridiculous. So they're saying that this whole thing was him saying the kids should bring the Bible to schools was anti-LGBTQ, which makes no sense. He didn't say anything about the gay community. He all said to say kids should bring the Bible to school. But of course, the media had none of it. They went after him about it. And this is the thing about like Christianity in America. Like, we are blessed to live in a country where we can worship like God how we please, or like worship, like, and go to public spaces and like preach the gospel and all that. We're blessed to be in a country like that. But the thing is, there is what people don't want to admit and see. There is a growing sentiment against Christians, mostly in the media, that's getting like bigger and bigger, and eventually it's gonna like eventually go into a governmental like level. And this is one of the reasons why I want to prevent Democrats from getting in power, because eventually Democrats are not like pro-religion at all. Like, if they were to get power, we could see a very crackdown on Christianity in in ways that America has not seen. Like in this country, like like a China style like crackdown. I mean, it could. I think eventually it will come, but it's a matter of time when. But it's a matter of when. But as right now, we do want to try to prevent that as much as possible. But again, it is inevitable. But you just never know when. Alrighty, so I think that's all I have for today. So I'll be back here next week, with whatever else is in the news. I mean, the news cycle just moves about like 5 years per second, so we shall see. Alright, so, and by the way, if you're interested in politics like me and wanting to kind of get more into it in a way, and like get stuff that show you support, like that you show you support politics or conservatives, whatever, go down to the description below. There'll be links to certain Amazon products, like some books by different conservative commentators or whatever, or different political themed products like t-shirts, mugs, decals, whatever. They're all by Amazon, so go down there, click some links, check it out. As always, like, share, subscribe, and so yeah, I'll see y'all next week. My name is Sean Clinton, and this is the God of Freedom Show.